From the newsroom of the Bryant College Station Eagle, this is the Brazos Sports Prepscast. And now, the Eagle High School sports team, Alex Miller and Jake Weiss.
What's going on, everyone? You're listening to the Brazos Sports Prepscast, a podcast about high school football here in the Brazos Valley. I'm Alex Miller with the Eagle, joined always by Jake Weiss, the Eagles high school sports reporter. Jake, the Brazos Valley, they're perfect 3-0 last week. You had College Station, Burton, and Franklin all moving on to the state semifinals. And you got one more week for the big one. See if these three teams can make it.
Yeah, and we've got an action-packed show to prove. I mean, it was a 3-0 big week. My hair's might look a little gray to some people. Those games had me stressed, but we got a big show, I think, to reflect that attitude and 1 week to go, like you said.
Yeah, big show in store today. We're going to have Matt Stepp from Dave Campbell's Texas Football on. He's going to join to discuss the state semifinals here in the Brazos Valley. And Robert Cessna, he's going to join as well to discuss a little bit about the resignation of A&M Consolidated coach Lee Fedora and where the Tigers might turn to now. That was a little overshadowed last week by some of these crazy games, but certainly a big deal in the coaching ranks, especially here locally.
Yeah, no, I have to say I didn't expect it. I don't know about you, but came as a surprise to me, and it came on a Friday? It came Friday, yeah. So that was, yeah, like you said, kind of lost in the shuffle a little bit, but where do they go next? I'm excited for that segment with Cease. I want to know what's going to happen.
So stay tuned for that. We're going to have all kinds of discussion about where the Tigers are headed and how Coach Fedora's time at Consol is going to be remembered. But first, Jake, we were on the edge of our seats. I don't know about you, I was, for not only Friday's game between Franklin and Columbus. I know you were covering Burton versus Granger, but we were both there for College Station's just last-second Stonewall win over Smithson Valley. So let's look back at a little bit of the action and look ahead to this week's games as well. So College Station, they stuffed Smithson Valley on the final play for a 26-21 win over the Rangers. I mean, what a game in Pflugerville, right? College Station senior linebacker Harrison Robinson, he stood up Smithson Valley's David DeHoyos for the win. Rangers faced 4th and goal from the 1 with 2 seconds left, and that was the final play of the game, Jake.
Yeah, and I mean, really, that whole drive, I thought, was just play after play. You're just thinking, what's going to happen next? I mean, the whole last, 44 seconds of the game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Felt like 44 minutes.
Yeah, that's the thing. I just couldn't get over, just seemed like, I remember looking back at your story and watching it live. It was, 7 plays? This drive was a 7-play drive?
Yeah, it was 7 plays. Now, granted, Smithson Valley spiked the ball 3 times, so they really only ran 4 real plays.
But, man, just every time, like you said, it seemed like an hour. I mean, it just kept, the little ticks on the clock just seemed hours to me, like you said. I just couldn't get over that.
Jake, what stood out to you about just that sequence of events?
Really just the biggest thing for me was just, man, College Station's defense. I mean, I know that's kind of a silly takeaway, but, man, that defense just stood them up. I was kind of a little nervous for them there when they got because if you remember on that drive, I think it was maybe they were on a 3rd down. They get that face mask penalty.
Right.
Yeah, that pushes them up. To half a distance to the goal?
Yeah, about the 5 or the 6. I think it was the 5.
Yeah, they spot them at the 5, so they get a whole fresh set of downs. You're already kind of thinking, all right, well, shoot, how are they going to respond to that? I mean, yeah, I think next play maybe was a spike. I'm kind of misremembering the events in my head here, but regardless, I was real worried about after that kind of where are they going to go from this because, that's a big momentum killer. I mean, you had them almost off the field or at least forced to go for it on 4th down. Then they get a whole new fresh set of downs. But credit to the defense, man. They did it again. They stood them up again, and, this time no penalties and took care of business.
You wrote your column about the College Station defense and just the growth that unit's had over the year. You talked with the defensive coordinator, Chance Locklear. You talked with, we talked with Harrison Robinson after the game. Just share a little bit just, how that unit has grown over the season.
Yeah, the biggest thing, and I thought this was really just a great way to put it from Coach Locke. He said, hey, when we break out in the huddle, our group, defense as a whole, we go we go team on 3, family on 6. I thought that was a really good way of putting it. If you're a little confused there, what he kind of just meant was, hey, this group's really grown from not just teammates, not just buddies in the locker room, but to a family. And that really showed. I mean, like that whole drive, that whole last 44 seconds, and really the whole game too. I mean, for the most part, I thought College Station, I don't want to say kept Smithson Valley in check, but, for the most part, for most of the game, though, we never really saw too many big plays. It wasn't like 45-yard pass down the field. For the most part, really the defense kind of stuck together, and, even when they did make mistakes, they quickly responded or rebounded. Because, they had, 2 turnovers, 2 interceptions, and then they have a fumble recovery as well.
Yeah, I want to. Now I'm slipping my mind. I feel like they did.
Yeah, so, but regardless, at least to me, I don't know if you felt the same way, but I felt like anytime they gave up a big play, they made up for it.
Right. You're absolutely right. They definitely did. And so, what's crazy, too, is in last year's state title game, it came down to could College Station stop Katy Pato at the 1-yard line? They couldn't. So this time around, faced with a very similar situation, season on the line, not a championship on the line, but your championship hopes on the line. They get the job done this time around against Smithson Valley. And coincidentally, College Station the last 2 years has won the region final game by a score of 26-21. They beat Denton Ryan by the same score last year. So what an interesting coincidence. Maybe it's not a coincidence. I don't know. But, hey, now College Station, they're 1 game away from playing for a state championship for the 2nd straight season. The Cougars are going to face Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial, that's a mouthful, Jake, in the state semifinal at 5 o'clock on Saturday in San Antonio at the Alamo Dome. I need a breath. But
should say that 3 times.
Yeah, seriously. No, but for real, the Eagles, they're legit, Jake. They're 12-2. They were 7-0 in District 14 5A Division 1. Their 2 losses were in non-district play on the road. One was to New Braunfels Canyon, who beat New Braunfels beat Denton Ryan. I was confused there for a second. And then El Campo, of course, they have Ruben Owens, 5-star running back. And so what's interesting, too, Veterans Memorial kind of in a similar situation to College Station. They're kind of a young school that's had a lot of success. They've been to at least the 4th round for the last 3 seasons. So this is no Cinderella program. These guys have been here before, and they're looking to make their first state championship game, though.
Yeah, and something else that you kind of talked about just then was with them being similar. Another thing that I kind of looked up that I thought was a little interesting, and I'm going to talk with their coach and also Coach Pryor later this week. But their coach, Ben Bittner, I want to say, that should be how you pronounce it. If I'm wrong, I apologize there, Coach. But he's also an offensive coordinator. This is his 2nd year as head coach, and then looked it up, read a bit about his background today, and he was 4 years there as an offensive coordinator, then got promoted last year. And then, like you said, it's taken them to playoffs, deep runs in the playoffs before. So kind of curious, too, if those two maybe not necessarily are friends or anything, but might know each other a little bit just because, kind of similar paths between Coach Pryor and Coach Bittner.
Yeah. So, Jake, I think you talked with Isaiah Pennygraph earlier this week. Just from him, what are the Cougars kind of focusing on as they head into this game? Yeah.
So as of the day we're recording this, it's Tuesday. It's still a little early in the week. I talked to them last week, kind of, because similar to last week, this is our Saturday game, like you said. Kind of an interesting thing they do is Monday. I talked to Coach Pryor about this. Monday is kind of their bonus day. It's kind of just a day, especially here in the playoffs, just to get kind of the guys, stretch them out a little bit at practice. It's a shorter practice, and they do a couple things to get ready for that week's game. But really today will be the day where they really kind of hit the ground running, because they have an extra day to get ready for. They're not playing on Friday. So really I talked to both of them, or talked to Isaiah about it. Nothing really crazy yet. He didn't know too much about them, but, just going off of what we did talk about, he's excited. Alamo Dome's a big stadium. UTSA, they play all their games there. Is that right? Yeah, so, they're just excited just about, at least for Isaiah, he's just real excited to be playing in that game. It's a big stage, but, the Cougars have been here before. They're not backing down. He wasn't saying, hey, we're nervous or this is too intimidating, but, he's just excited to be playing in a big stadium, big atmosphere, and who knows, maybe big crowd too.
Yeah. We'll be there on Saturday, so looking forward to that one. Okay, Jake, let's flip gears for a second. Bryson Washington, his late touchdown sent Franklin to the state semifinals with a 24-21 win over to Columbus. Hey, when this year's all said and done, Mark Fannin and the Lions, they're going to remember that last drive against the Cardinals, okay? Down 4:23 to go. Franklin drove 78 yards in 16 plays, capped by Washington's 7-yard touchdown run. It was on a reverse, too. A little trickery there. Pulled out that 3-point win over Columbus last Friday in Tomball. The Lions winning streak now at 30. They're one game away from playing for a state championship for the third year in a row. They're facing Edna in the state semifinals on Thursday at 7 in Katy. Yeah, we're both going to be there, too, for that one, Jake.
Well, I got to ask you, man, walk me through what you were thinking on their final drive. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, here's the deal, too. Franklin went ahead by 10 there in that third quarter. I mean, they just had a Franklin-esque drive, just drove down the field, churned down the clock, and capped by Bryson Washington just busted out a 21-yard run. I thought that's where they were going to pull away. I thought Columbus, it was over, and I was very wrong. Columbus came back immediately. They scored like 4 plays later, took less than 2 minutes. They went ahead and took the lead in the fourth, and I've got to say, the Lions, they hadn't been in a situation like that all season where, they had to come back and win the game in that kind of scenario, and they were so poised. I mean, the composure that they had on that last drive was something else. And so, Washington's going to get remembered for the touchdown, but really it was Jaden Jackson's night, okay? He finished 164 yards on 26 carries, and, Columbus was able to really slow down Bryson Washington throughout most of the game. He had a couple of those big runs that helped him get to 100 yards, but, I mean, Franklin's ability to have, if a guy like Washington isn't able to have the big game that he's used to, a guy like Jackson can step up and really, handle the load and get the Lions to where they need to go. So, it was so impressive to see the poise and the composure. And, you talk with Coach Fannin, they don't have any doubt in their mind that they're going to win the game, even when they're losing. So I think it doesn't come across as an arrogance. It comes across as just pure confidence. And I think that just winning mentality is what helped them at the end, because they were confident that even though they were behind, they could go all the way down the field and win the game, and that's exactly what they did.
Well, like you mentioned earlier, that next game's going to be Thursday. The semifinal is going to be against Edna. The Cowboys looking pretty good. 13-1 this season. They won 14-21 over Llano last Thursday as well. Their last state semifinal appearance was 2014, so it's been a while for them, but they're here and they're back. They've lost to Cameron Yo, I want to say in the regular season. Is that right? Or no, was that?
No, that was the 2014
That was 2014. Game. Okay, my apologies there. I got a little confused there. They've only
clarify that on the notes.
They've only been to one state title game too, and that was real long time ago, 1965. They lost to Plano. So I guess, Alex, in your opinion, what are kind of the Lions Franklin's expecting to do here? What are they kind of looking for Thursday?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. They're so close to getting back to that state title game, and I think that's something that Coach Fannin is really stressing to his team. Like, hey, you're so close. Like, just keep going. They have just grown. They have grown accustomed to winning. I mean, that is a winning program there, and so I think that taking care of themselves, taking care of their body. I mean, it's a short week for them. They played Friday, and now they're playing Thursday. Edna played last Thursday, so they got an extra day of rest. That was a very physical game against Columbus. I mean, those guys were worn out at the end of the game. You could really see it on their faces. And so, if Franklin wants to beat Edna, they're going to have to be strong on the defensive line. Edna really pushed Llano on the O-line last week. And so that is something that they're going to have to focus in on. So, hey, I'm going to have a feature story on Andrew Elmore later this week. Franklin's senior nose tackle moved over from offense to full-time on defense this year. So let's check out a little bit of our conversation with Andrew Elmore. looking kind of at your season this year, you've moved over to defensive line this year. Can you just kind of take us through that journey and how you kind of went through that transition?
I was always kind of a two-way player up until like middle school, Pee Wee, even on JV my freshman year. I played both ways, just kind of trying to get a knack for both sides of the ball. I definitely felt that I was more successful as an offensive lineman going into my sophomore year, and then I was still the backup nose tackle for our team. And round 2, I'm pretty sure, our starter tore his ACL, and it's my time. I got to step up. I have to go in and be able to play at a high level so we can, go and win games. And just since then, I feel like I found something in that spot.
Yeah, this year, though, you've been playing mostly defensive line. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, last year you were obviously on the offensive side more so. What's that switch been like for you this season, knowing y'all had a need there to be filled?
I don't think it was a too difficult switch. I was comfortable on the defensive line, familiar with the position, knew what to do, and we just have great coaches all around. Doesn't matter what position you're going to be put in, they're going to give you the tools to succeed. So I feel like I've been especially blessed with just people around me who are great playmakers. Our linebackers, Braden and Colby, Bryson, and obviously, and of course Major, our defensive end. They're all just playmakers. If you come to a Franklin football game, you're going to hear those names all night. And so I've just been able to kind of sink into my role and play well enough to be able to succeed.
At what point after last season, whether it was soon after spring ball, going into, two-a-days, did you realize that you were actually going to be playing more defense?
I think I kind of knew it once the season was over, just kind of realized, I played both ways through the playoffs because we had a couple of guys go down with injury, had to be able to fill a spot. I feel like I'd been told kind of near the end, just like get ready because next year it's all defense. I knew. It wasn't a surprise.
Yeah, do you miss playing offensive line? I mean, there's a lot of pride in those offensive linemen here in Franklin.
Yeah, I definitely miss it, being able to go out and block for the superstars we have in our backfield. But, I've been able to get in a couple times in a couple games, just, short yardage situations, going as the extra tackle. And, I feel like we've been pretty successful in those situations. So there's still that sense of pride, kind of hold my head up high.
Big thanks to Andrew Elmore for sitting down with us for a couple minutes. Jake, we still gotta get to Burton and Mark, but first let's hear from our friend Matt Stepp, and then let's hear from Robert Cessna. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, hey, without further ado, here's our conversation with Dave Campbell's Matt Stepp. Welcome back to the Brazos Sports Prepscast, everyone. Joining us on the phone now, it's Matt Stepp, Texas high school football insider for Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Matt, what's going on?
Alex, how are you, sir, man? It's unseasonably warm, and it doesn't feel like it's state semifinal weekend, but here we are. I feel like we need a cold front to come through, but I guess we got enough of that the first couple of rounds of the playoffs, right?
Yeah, think about it. This is the last week anybody's playing outdoors. It's all indoors next week, climate control. So,
That's right.
Thinking about this week, though, is this one of the toughest weeks of the season since teams are just so close to state?
Yeah, every round of the playoffs gets a little tougher to pick because the teams are all great. They've all won 4 playoff games at this point in the semifinal round. You're splitting hairs. You got a lot of coin flip type games, and we call it the cruelest round of the playoffs because you're one step. If you get to state and you lose, you still got to state. You're still always going to be in the record books, but. Does anyone remember who the semifinal teams were? Hardly at all. It's kind of one of those things that if you lose in this round, it's really, really heartbreaking. So this is a lot of fun, and there'll be a lot of tears and a lot of celebration starting Thursday night.
For sure. Well, College Station, they're playing Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial. Franklin, they've got Edna this week. those are two teams that Brazos Valley fans are probably not as familiar with coming from that Coastal Bend area. You saw both of Veterans Memorial and Edna last week. Just kind of what stood out to you about each of those teams that College Station Franklin fans should be looking out for?
Yeah, I guess I'm uniquely suited to talk about these two teams. I had the fortune to see Edna on Thursday night in San Marcos when they took down Llano. And the first thing that impressed me about Edna was they're big. They are a big and physical football team. As they were walking into the locker room pregame, one of the San Marcos coaches I was talking to was like, they look like a 5A school. You know, they've got a lot of good-looking kids. They got good sized. They do have some playmakers on offense. You know, Jaden Clay, the quarterback, is a dynamic dual-threat player. They've got two running backs. One's kind of a scat back. One's a bigger back that also plays linebacker, who's really good. They've got a good wide receiver who's actually the half-brother of Ruben Owens, the five-star running back at El Campo, Tyler Owens, who's a two-way starter. So they got a lot of weapons. Defensively, they're big and fast and physical, and their best defensive player didn't even play in the Llano game last week. So he'll be back on Friday night. His name is Otis Santinella. He's a defensive tackle that I'm sure will help Edna. So they're big and fast. They don't have the playoff experience that Franklin has. Obviously, this is kind of their first really deep. I think they made the third round last year in 2021, so this is their first semifinal run in quite some time. So they don't have the playoff experience that Franklin has, and they don't have a guy like Bryson Washington either. So very interested in this matchup. I think Franklin comes in as the favorite, but I think Edna, much like Columbus did last week, does have the capability to push Franklin in the right scenario, pull the upset.
For sure.
Corpus Christi Vets they're typically a very dynamic offense. They're in their short history, they've been a very dynamic offensive team. This year's team is a lot different. They're kind of a gritty, grimy team that's won a lot of close games, gotten it done with defense in a lot of ways. They don't have a bunch of superstars on the offensive side of the ball. I guess their quarterback, Elijah Durrett, another dual threat guy, is a good player, and their receiver, Christian Sabsuk, who had a couple of touchdown catches in their win on Saturday evening, are the kind of their headline players. But I think Corpus Christi Vets, they kind of had built a reputation over the years as kind of being soft and being a real flashy team that'll score 40 or 50 points on you, but they don't stop a lot of people. And they've kind of flipped the script this year and become more of a defensive kind of oriented team, and I think it's suited them and helped them in this deep playoff run.
Well, you're going to be at that College Station Veterans Memorial game on Saturday. What are you kind of looking to see from the College Station side of things?
I want to see. I think College Station is the favorite. Typically Region 3 in most cases is the favorite over Region 4, and I don't think it's any different this week. I think College Station comes in as the favorite. I think that the key for College Station offensively is just, Arrington Maiden, their quarterback, just needs to take care of the football, spread the ball around to the playmakers, make good decisions with the ball. I think they'll be able to run the football. I think they'll need to stick with it, because I do think Vets will be able to hang in there a little while. But so I think College Station needs to be consistent with the running game, and then defensively, I think the biggest key for College Station is going to be making Vets a one-dimensional offense, making them be pass-heavy and just taking the running game completely away, and making Durrett into a more of a pocket passer. Don't let him get outside the pocket and break contain, where he can kind of be a dual threat and kind of improvise and make plays. I think they can do those things. They should come out to win.
Well, Burton, they're the third Brazos Valley team left in the playoffs. I think you were the only one from the Dave Campbell's crew to roll with Burton in your playoff picks for Region 4, so kudos to you for getting that one right. But they're going to have their hands full this Friday against Mart.
Thank you for knowing that.
I had to go look that up, but I saw that. But, Burton, they're going to have their hands full this week against Mart. You see any possibility that the Panthers can pull an upset on this perennial power?
Yeah, I think if Burton continues to play the kind of defense that they've played in the first 4 rounds of the playoffs, absolutely. Now, obviously, the level of competition this week against Mart is going to go up significantly. This is a Mart team that's won, I think, their 4 playoff games by over. I think they've won their last 6 games by 50 points plus. So, obviously, it's scary because they've come in and they've blown everyone away. But I don't think Region 3 is quite as tough as Region 4 is. So I think Burton's a little more battle-tested when it comes to the playoffs. So I think with that defense, it can keep them in the game. The key for Burton's going to be use the Falls City game plan from last year. And Falls City pulled the upset on Mart. They played tough defense. They controlled the clock, moved the football with the running game, and limited Mart's possessions. And I think the second thing is, let's withstand the Mart kind of. Mart typically just runs out on people really early, and it's 35-0 with 8 minutes left in the second quarter, and the game's over. Right? I think if you're Burton, if you can hang into this game and make it a game at halftime, how does Mart handle that? Because they haven't been in a lot of close games, so let's put the pressure on Mart and see how they handle adversity in the second half, and see if they can handle how they handle playing in a close game in the third and fourth quarter. That's one thing that Burton has experience on. They've won a couple of close playoff games. They know what it's like to be in close games. I don't think Mart's played a close game since maybe the Centerville game in non-district, I think may have been the only really close game they've had all year. So I think that's the key for Burton is let's get this thing to halftime and be close, and then see what happens in the second half, see if we can pull the upset.
Well, most teams, they're into basketball season by now. But, when you look back at this season, were there any other Brazos Valley teams that kind of surprised you in what they were able to do?
The surprises for me in the Brazos Valley were all kind of on the bad side. I was, Lexington, I think I had them picked to win the region, and they were a disappointment losing after a 10-0 regular season, feeling pretty good about things, and they got beat in the first round. Navasota missing out on the playoffs was kind of a disappointment. And I thought, honestly, A&M Consolidated had a chance to make a deep playoff run. And I thought, I know injuries kind of derailed things for them a little bit, but I was a little disappointed they didn't go further. On the flip side, I think College Station, if you remember when we talked preseason, Alex, I before the Lovejoy game, I was like, I think Lovejoy is going to roll College Station. And they did, but I'm impressed with College, because after the first week of the season, I kind of dismissed College Station and thought, oh, well, Marquise Collins is hurt. They got a new head coach. They got blown out by Lovejoy in the first game of the year. They're just going to kind of, not be a team to keep an eye on. And give credit to Stony Pryor and those kids. They've done a heck of a job getting the ship righted. And I think they're a surprise on the good end of things, because the way they've bounced back and found this identity that they have and kept it rolling, it's really a testament to those kids and that coaching staff, and very impressive College Station.
Well, you mentioned A&M Consolidated, and big news last Friday, Lee Fedora submitted his resignation to the Tigers. From your perspective, you're pretty well connected within the coaching community around the state. Is this a job that's going to attract statewide candidates, and if so, why?
I've gotten texts from very successful head coaches who are interested in the A&M Consolidated job. And I think people are very interested in it. I think Consol has tradition. They have good athletes. They have good administrative support. The facilities are decent. College Station, I think, for a lot of people is a desirable town to live in. It's big enough. You got everything you need right there, but you're an hour from the outskirts of Houston. You're an hour and a half from Waco. You're an hour and a half, 2 hours from Austin. You're very close to a lot of amenities, but yet it's still a desirable place right there, because you don't really have to leave College Station if you don't want to. So I think there's a lot of positives for the A&M Consolidated job, and I think it is going to attract some statewide interest. And I'll be very surprised if I would think if they wanted, they could hire a very successful head coach, potentially with state titles if they want to. That's the kind of interest they're going to get.
Well, we'll leave you with this one. I know you're a foodie, so you're going to be in San Antonio this weekend. Any spots in San Antonio on your list to eat this weekend Cougar fans and even myself need to go check out, put on our radar?
Oh, man, there's a lot. San Antonio is awesome. First off, number one rule of San Antonio, don't eat on the Riverwalk.
Agreed.
All this touristy chain stuff. Don't go to the Riverwalk and eat. It's a rookie mistake. Don't do that. If you're looking for something quick, there's a South Texas chain. It's called Taco Palenque that I talk about on Twitter all the time. There's a couple of locations in San Antonio. It's open 24 hours. Think of it as a really authentic version of Taco Cabana. It's awesome, quick. You can go through the drive-thru, get you some tacos to go. You won't be disappointed. The DCTF staff loves Taco Palenque. It's kind of based in the Rio Grande Valley. And they've kind of moved. They've moved north a little bit. I know they have a location in Round Rock now, but there's two locations in San Antonio. highly recommend that for just something quick. If you want something a little more sit-downy, I love 2M Smokehouse, which is barbecue. I love Big Lou's Pizza. Mexican food, you can just throw a rock anywhere and hit a great Mexican restaurant. If I had to pick one, I would say El Chaparral is my favorite. There's a couple of locations in town. The one I go to is off 1604. And then for burgers, you got to go to Chris Madrid's. Chris Madrid's is a great burger spot. So those are all my San Antonio recommendations.
Well, Matt, thanks for giving us a few minutes of your day. How can people follow you on Twitter and keep up with your updates from games this week?
On Twitter, I'll be at Matt_Step817. That's Step with Matt with 2 T's, Step with 2 P's. And I'll be posting on Twitter, TexasFootball.com. My previews for this week games will be posted, I think, tomorrow. And looking forward to going to San Antonio. Will I see you in San Antonio, Alex, or is Jake going to be there?
That's the plan. We're both planning on being there. So we'll see you at the Alamo.
Oh wow, double coverage.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We got it. We got
well,
to.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, I was done. Sorry.
Okay. No, I was saying make sure you take Jake. Make sure y'all go to some good spots down there.
Absolutely. That is the goal. So, well, Matt, thanks for giving us a few minutes of your day. We'll see you in San Antonio.
All right. Y'all be careful.
All right. Welcome back to the Brazos Sports Preps Cast, everyone. Joined now by Robert Cessna, sports editor of The Eagle. Cease, pretty much the biggest news from last week, aside from some too crazy finishes between College Station and Franklin, was A&M Consolidated coach Lee Fedora. He submitted his resignation on Friday. A little bit of surprising news. He went 57-15 in 6 seasons with the Tigers. They were 9-3 this year. His best season at Consol was last season. They were 10-3 with a third-round playoff appearance. And Consol won the outright district title in 2019 and after starting 11-0.
Yeah, when you look at it, it was a great story. Hero come home. He was wide receiver, obviously, on the team that, Ross Rogers got his start, so to speak. They lost to Chapel Hill in the finals. I think that was in '89. It all runs together. Lee was also a great baseball player. I can remember when he played in Little League, and of course he goes on to A&M basically as a football player, but playing some baseball, and then of course went to baseball all the way. Maybe I got that reversed, but of course College World Series, third baseman. Ball hit his tooth, whatever, couldn't play. Then he came back and played. And at that time, that was the last game they won until last year. But I digress. But just a great story because he'd won at Navasota, coming home 6 years, as you mentioned, never did not make the playoffs. And then all of a sudden, we're all sitting here on Friday, hey, Lee Fedora has resigned. And, of course, you're never going to hear the true story on both sides because it's like nobody wins when you start throwing mud up against the deal. So you got to kind of have to read the tea leaves. And it's been there for several times. And it's hard in when you got a school district with multi-schools, it's hard to treat all the schools alike. And then somebody gets something that somebody doesn't. And Lee has proven to be a winner, and obviously there was some conflict there. Now, I do not know where the conflict was. All I know is there's no way he just walked out of the door on his own.
Yeah, I mean, he won 2 state championships at Navasota. He's got over 200 career wins. I mean, to be a Hall of Fame coach, there's kind of 2 main criteria. Win 200 games, win a state championship. He's got both.
And as I'll preface is both of them will go on to be winners. I'm talking about A&M Consolidated High School / College Station and Lee Fedora. Just didn't work out. You look at all the deals. Obviously, there's a different superintendent from when Lee came back. There's also a different AD since Lee came back. College Station is much different since Lee came back in a way. You look at it, what Steve Huff has done, and then he left on. What Stoney Pryor has come on and continued. Here's my deals. schools can never be treated alike, but yet they are. It's tough because you can't tell me that Consolidated and College Station are equal in everything. It's a tough situation. I feel for the coaches. I feel for the people who have to make those decisions, because you do have to treat all people equal. Bottom line is they're both winners. They will continue to win, but somewhere else. If it doesn't work out, get it over with. It's like when you hear your parents might be getting divorced, or your best friends that you hang around with are getting divorced, and you say, that shouldn't happen, or whatever. They just couldn't get along. It's just the way life goes, and sometimes a split will do them good. And everybody's called me and texted, what happened? What happened to Lee? What happened to, was it Martindale? Was it the new was it the new, AD? What's the deal? Everybody wants to know the true story. True story is not going to come out, folks. The facts are they're gone. Lee's gone. College State, A&M Consolidated / College Station SID will have to move on. It's easy for me to say they both will be winners, but to what degree? Because you could say College Station has been a huge winner versus Consolidated. We look on football field, even with Lee coming back. And that's the bottom line. And how do you fix that? If you're living in the school boundaries of Consolidated, you're not happy because your team's not getting deep playoff runs. And you had everything gone for you. You had Lee Fedora coming back. You had some good-looking athletes. I thought they'd maybe go a little further than what they did. And that's not a knock on Lee. That just happens. And maybe that was his window. Who knows what's going on. But I don't think Lee left here entirely on his own. I think, if things could have worked out, he'd probably like to stay. But then the school board or whoever's in charge saying, we probably need to move on.
Well, you expect him to be coaching high school football next season? Don't know where?
And all this is speculation because we don't know anything. People do not want to talk off the record, whether it be somebody in the school board or whether it be Martindale or whatever, because you've got a lot of things involved in this. I do expect him to be coaching. Why? Because he's already set out 1 year. Say what you will, none of us are getting any younger except you. And I think if Lee loves to coach, he's already proven that, whether it's Waco Robinson, whether it's Rogers, or whether it's Navasota, he was born to coach. So I don't think he'll set out another year, and it's way too early to speculate. You could say, Caldwell's open, Rockdale's open, he won't have to go far. Maybe that could be true. Or maybe he wants – I would think, you look at his track record, he's going to go somewhere where he can win and avoid whatever pitfalls he had at A&M Consolidated.
Well, the question here locally now is, where does Consol go from here? Because the job was posted Friday, and unlike College Station last year, it's not internal only. So statewide applicants or even out-of-state applicants can apply. Any names to keep an eye on? Is this a lucrative job for those seeking to come here?
It's a 5A job. People have won here before. Ross Rogers, once again, is now you look at the two schools. Since they've split into two schools, who's won? College Station. You look at the records, not even close. Why is that? And I think if you are living in College Station unbiased, or you're in the school board unbiased, if you're Steve Martindale, I think you got to ask your Mike Martindale. I was thinking of Steve Martin. We were, hey, wild and crazy guy. Well, that's me. But I think you've got to ask yourself, why is College Station winning, giving everything equal, in Consolidated's not? And I think it's a huge hire. Anytime you're in a multi-school school, it's a huge hire because College Station didn't miss a beat. Okay, why is that? You think coaching doesn't matter. Steve Huff is playing in the state semifinals for Decatur. Coaching does matter. I think Stoney Pryor's done a great job, and he did a great job when he was an assistant at Consolidated. It's just not by chance. Just saying you're going to open it up doesn't mean you're going to get a better play. Ray Kavanaugh probably is very qualified. He's on staff, and I'm probably missing somebody else, but it's off the top of my head. Lee had head coaches in the waiting. That was a Ross Rogers theme. His coaches were good enough to be head coaches. It's all about Martindale and the AD, whoever making the right call. And you're right. I don't think you just say, we're going to just bump somebody up. This is an important hire because everybody's going to look, hey, Lee Fedora left or whatever, it didn't work out. He was averaging 9.5, 10 wins a year. So what do we have to do? And, you mentioned Shannon Hall, there's consolidated people out there that have gone on and are assistant coaches or head coaches. Do you want to go that route? Brian tried that with Bobby Ballard. It didn't work out. Sometimes, it's great coming home, but only to get kicked out again. The question is not should they stay in-house or should they go out. They just need to make the right call.
Well, doesn't sound like that's going to happen this week or maybe even next
Right.
week. I think it might be a little bit down the line. They already said early spring in their statement last week from Mike Martindale. You always got to look at the school board dates and meetings because that's when those kinds of things are approved and discussed. So maybe looking at a January, maybe even an early February hire. Could be down the road.
And don't forget, A&M always plays into this as well. You could have somebody wanting to come back home, and Aggie goes, well, I'll go back there. I'm ready to retire. I have a good coach. I don't know who this is. I want to go back and consolidate and coach a while. My wife, my kids want to go back, whatever. There's a lot of possibilities. So I think if you're College Station Independent School, you have to look at all the options. What's out there? Sometimes you can get a steal and get somebody you don't know. Brian got somebody who has got a state title in Ricky Tullis. They feel they've got the foundation to something that will be bigger. We'll wait and see. He made the playoffs this year, but once again, what's the proof in the pudding 3-4 years down the line? And I think that's going to be the same no matter who College Station hires, but we're all anxiously awaiting because when you do the pecking order right now, Rudder it just hasn't proven it yet. So you're looking at Bryan, College Station, and Consolidated in this community. Who's the bell cows? Those are the three bell cows. And it's all football leads. So this is a huge hire.
Well, Cease, before we let you go, what stood out to you this playoff run in the Brazos Valley this year?
Oh, a lot of things. Number one, Franklin doing it again. Anytime you got the bullseye on your back, can you do that a second year? They lost a lot of guys last year. And I understand Rice and Washington. I haven't seen them play. Followed them closely, obviously, typing stats in or whatever. Washington is the real deal. Jackson's come on. He's the real deal. That's just hard to do. And they've played a tough schedule. When you look at what they've done, you looked at what Burton did. And you always talk about winning. I feel bad for Centerville. Centerville had a really good team. Bad bracket. Brenham should have taken advantage. Brenham could still be playing. Brenham could be playing for a state championship because the bracket's weak. And sometimes it's not how good you are, how good everybody else is. But you asked me, College Station, I never thought College Station would go once Collins went out. I'm saying Collins, a new coach, Region 3 or 2, it doesn't matter whether 2 or 3. A lot of times they're interchangeable. But if you'd told me the day I heard that Collins wasn't coming back after losing Huff, after losing Carnes, after losing offensive linemen, defensive players, and you told me that College Station would be a favorite going into the state semifinals, I'd say, what are you smoking or what are you drinking? So that's kudos to those kids, the coaches, and the same thing at Franklin. This is when it matters. When you get to the quarters and on, you get statewide attention because even people up in Amarillo go, wow, College Station's in the playoffs again. Wow, Franklin's in the playoffs. Just like we're there. Oh, Decatur's in the playoffs. Oh, China Springs tough. When you're here, you get that attention. It's hard with so many teams gone to the playoffs because they're diluted. We get that. Let's give everybody a medal. But when you get down to the quarterfinals, there's very few medals left. So you get to the quarterfinals, whoever you are, pat yourself on the back and feel good about life.
Well, here's the golden question, Cease. How many of the 3 remaining teams are going to be playing for a state title next week, in your opinion?
Well, doing enough research, it's actually not going to be a cakewalk for College Station or Franklin. I usually see Edna. You don't think much. Corpus schools, but they look at who they played, what they've done. Poor Burton, Mart. Mart could probably beat the LA Rams right now with the way they're struggling. So poor Burton. They might be hurting in Burton come Saturday morning, which I hate because Jason Hody, great guy, great program, what he did carrying on for Coach Smith. You love those small communities that live and die with their coaches, with their players, a la Franklin. And, that's what Americana and Texas high school football is about. The Franklins of the world, the Burtons of the world, and even the Marts of the world, and you just run into a bigger moccasin. But to answer your question, I think it's going to be tough for College Station. I think they're toss-ups, and College Station and Franklin, but it makes victory that much more sweeter. Burton, I don't want to do doom. I hope Hody gets to call me and say, you were talking out your butt again, Cessna. We went up there. We shocked the world. We beat Mart. I hope that's the case. But, man, every year, when high schools was the only thing I did, I felt lost if I come to this week and there was nothing to cover. Nothing's worse than be eating as a sports writer, eating Thanksgiving dinner and knowing you're not covering a high school team this week, because that's where it's at.
Well, Cease, thanks for giving us a few minutes every day. We appreciate you coming on, sharing some insight.
Well, I'm not going to apply for the consolidated job, even though I had 2 daughters be trainers there. They said they're looking for a fresh start.
We'll see if Tuggles can give it to him. All right, we'll be back here in a minute, wrapping out this episode of the podcast. Hey, look at this guy. It's Jake Weiss. He's back. Jake, I thought we lost you for a minute. So we're back. Jake, we got one more game to discuss. Burton, they're going to have their biggest test yet this week against Mart. We were last week, Jake. We were just raving about that Burton defense, that Red Dead defense, man. But now the Panthers, they got to prove themselves. They got to face perennial power Mart this week in the 2A Division II state semifinals.
Yeah, but credit to Burton's defense. We raved about the Red Dead. I like that you came up with that. I like that you kept that going. The Red Dead defense. You raved about it last week, and I think we still should talk about it this week a little bit because, against Granger, they were the real deal. I actually took my notes here, folks, because a lot happened for the defense. So I want to make sure that I, get it all in there. I want to mention it all. Burton had only allowed 95 yards, a total offense to Granger, 3 fumble recoveries, 2 interceptions. I will admit some of that might have been because of the weather. It was real wet. I covered the Burton game pretty much the whole drive from Bryan to Bastrop. It rained the whole time. Not like super hard, but kind of just consistent. A little drizzle, so I'm sure that helped on the field. And overheard some people talking who went down to the field at various points throughout the game, and they said the same thing. Hey, it's wet. So, that might have been a factor, but, man, defense looked great. Like I said, 5 total takeaways, and, Burton put up 27 points in that game. All 4 of their scores were set up by takeaways. Just every time the defense, the only one they couldn't capitalize on was their very first takeaway, but after that, the offense just went to work after the defense did its job. Delvin Gant, who plays defensive back and wide receiver, they put him in at running back a little bit as well. He had 2 interceptions on the night. Both of the interceptions for Burton were his. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns, including one that I think we might have to put up on the screen.
All right, let's put it up on the screen.
Yeah, I was very impressed. It was on a fake field goal. So, I'm excited to rewatch this again.
Tell us about it a little bit.
I will, yeah. I'll lead up to it. It was a 4th down. It was pretty much right before the break. Once again, Delvin gets an interception. Burton comes back on offense. Quickly just drive down the field. I want to say for like 35 seconds until the half. It's like 4th and 6. They set up for a field goal. I was fully just expecting a field goal. It fooled me. I was up in the box and fooled. And then all of a sudden, you'll see here in the clip, they pitch it to Delvin, and then he just takes off. So enjoy the clip.
Well, certainly a big win for Burton last week. They're definitely going to have their hands full this Friday, though, it's a Thursday game, isn't it?
It is
Thursday in Round Rock.
Yep.
So Mart, they've won 8 state championships. Quarterback Jonah Ross, running back J.D. Bell, they're a lethal duo, Jake. They've combined for 86 touchdowns this year. And here's the deal. Mart, not only can they throw the ball, they can go tempo too, which is really big at the 2A level, especially in Division II. It's just really not something you see a lot of down at that level. So, it might take a perfect game for Burton to come away with the win. Mart's really only been challenged one time this year. They got away with a 21-20 win over Centerville back in non-district. So I don't know if Coach Hody's throwing on the film to see what the Tigers did to slow them down there. But, you mentioned how last week they scored off 4 turnovers every single time. That's definitely probably going to be a recipe for success this week. Going to have to find a way to to create some opportunities to take some points away from Mart.
Yeah, and on offense too, Burton really kind of did it by committee too. Delvin Gant was in the backfield. Pearson Spies was in the backfield. Tyrone Gilman, who plays on the defensive line, he actually led the way for their offense. It's funny, the PA guy at Bastrop gave him the nickname the Bulldozer. So I'm not sure if you're listening to Tyrone Gilman, but if you like that nickname, we'll keep it going because I enjoyed it in the box. But yeah, he had 20 carries, 144 yards, touchdown 2. He pretty much picked up most of their yards on offense too. That was the crazy thing. Like I kept waiting for him to, break one into the end zone and then breaks free on like a 17-yard touchdown run. So it'll be interesting to see if they kind of keep doing it by committee there, or if they just like pick one of these backs to just lean on and kind of carry the load here against Mart.
Well, Jake, I think we've covered just about everything this week. It's a big week for the Brazos Valley. See which teams can try and move on and advance to the grand finale up at AT&T Stadium next week. Yeah,
it should be a good week. Action-packed week. Should be fun.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for tuning into this week's podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage of high school football here in the Brazos Valley. For Jake Weiss, I'm Alex Miller. We'll see you hopefully next week on the Brazos Sports Prepscast.